Welcome back. Let's take a look at the first reading passage from Test 1 from book Cambridge IELTS 19. This is the academic reading. Let me get my pen. As always, we read the title, but before we start reading the passage, we actually go to the questions. How tennis rackets have changed? Well, immediately after reading this, you should ask yourself, well, what are we going to talk about in this passage? Probably we are going to mention history. We are going to say how it started, what they had in the beginning, and then what changes did they make, and what are the modern rackets that they are using. You can also probably talk about different players, as you can see here, and the type of rackets that they use. So that's it. History of the rackets. When it says how they have changed, immediately you should think, okay, past, present. Now, let's go to the questions and see what we have. Usually for task one, you'll get true and false questions and also maybe one word only questions or matching. And they are generally easy to answer. So for task one, what I highly recommend is just looking at the questions and asking yourself if it's possible to answer without reading the passage. And generally, it is possible. And that's what we're going to do this time. And if you can do this, you are going to save a lot of time and you can spend that time on the next questions, on the next passages, which are probably more difficult. So every time I see a true, false, not given question, the first thing that gets my attention is the names, the dates, and basically the ways in which I can actually find the answer or the location, the approximate location of it. So we have Andy Murray twice. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It doesn't matter. Andy M. I mean, you don't even have to worry about that. 2016, and that's basically it. For this one, there is nothing that makes it easy to find that. But then I have Mike and Bob Bryan for number four. And if I find number four and number two, then obviously number three is going to be between the two. Then we have Werner Fischer, and then also I have done this reading before, so I basically know the answers. But from test two, three, and four, it's going to be a new experience for me as well. Let's see, Pete Sampras, and that's basically it. The weather. Also, the weather is something that can be easily found, in my opinion, because the test is the text. The text is about tennis. It's not really about weather. So this seems like an out of place thing when you see it in the passage, because why are we talking about the weather? So as soon as we start talking about the weather, it's going to get your attention, and that's going to be number six. Okay, let's see. One word only. I mean, obviously, we could guess similar to how we prepared ourselves for the listening sections. But let's see the tennis rackets and how it has changed. Okay, the same title. Mike and Bob Bryan. Now, the first thing that gets my attention is Mike and Bob Bryan were number four here. So they are probably in the second, third, or fourth paragraph, depending on how many paragraphs we have. So this thing doesn't start from the beginning. That makes it a lot easier to actually find the location of eight. So four and eight are probably close to each other. And Mike and Bob Bryan made changes to the types of something used on their racket frames. Well, think about a tennis racket. And I mean, how many different parts does it have? Well, it has the handle, and then it has the frame around it, and it has the strings in the middle. But the types of what used on the racket frames, the types of material, probably wood, the type of strings. Let's say for now, I'll just leave it at that. Those are the guesses we have. You don't need to spend a lot of time guessing because obviously you have the answers in the passage. Players were not allowed to use. Players were not allowed. So something was illegal. Something was banned. Something was prohibited. Legal and prohibited. So these are the words I'll probably be looking for in the passage. To use the spaghetti strong racket because of the amount of something it created. Spaghetti strong sounds like something that will be repeated in the passage. This is not something that they can use synonyms for. It's a technical term regarding the rackets or the game itself. So this is going to be repeated. It's very easy to find. I mean, it's spaghetti strong, two words. It's a very long word. It cannot be separated. So it's going to be very easy to find. And it's going to be after Mike and Bob Bryan. Now, just to show you how fast we can actually find these ideas, let me just go here. We have Murray, and then we have another one. Also, going from the top, you should be this fast. So basically, just following my cursor, I'm doing this, and I don't see any. These names we don't care about. I don't see any other mention of Andy Murray. Then we have a year, 2011. I'll underline that, 2012. And then this person we don't care about. I'll keep scrolling. Then we have another mention of Murray and another name. We don't care about this one. Then I see Mike and Bob Bryan, which is 4 and 8. So then 9 has to be after that, meaning spaghetti strong should be somewhere around maybe here. But I don't see it. It's a long word. So if it's written, for example, with this size, it should be this big. And I don't see it. It's not here. And also, I don't see any names. I don't see anything important for now. I keep scrolling. Let's see, German tennis player, Spaghetti Strong. That's it. We have also Werner Fischer. We were looking for that person as well. So we have Spaghetti Strong, which was, I think, 9. Let me see. Yeah, it was 9. And now to guess. Players were not allowed to use the Spaghetti Strong racket because of the amount of force it created, because of the amount of noise it created, because of the amount of uh, distraction it created. It's probably something in those lines. Changes to rackets can be regarded as being as important as players' diets or the something they do. So there are three things that are as important as each other: diets, the things that the athletes do, and the changes to rackets. So these three have to be equally important in a paragraph. Okay, instead of diet, again, we are talking about tennis. Similar to what I said about the weather. If they start talking about food, it's going to get your attention. And that's when you'll find this one. So it's after spaghetti strong, it's about diets. And the words I'm looking for are probably nutrition or the types of food like pizza, I don't know, bread, potatoes, whatever it is, protein, vitamins. Any mention of those will do. And also changes to rackets. Obviously, this one is not easy to find because the whole passage is about changes to rackets. But this one is going to be easy to find. And also now the third thing we are looking for is something that the athletes do. Well, what can we do? We can do sports, we can do exercise, we can do training, and these are basically what I'm looking for. Now, again, just to show you how fast we can find these. Number 10. You should spend, by the way, you should spend most of your time in the questions if you get this type of question instead of reading. This will be much more convenient and much more efficient. Now, let's see. I'm looking for food, changes to rackets, and something that the players do. And it's after spaghetti strong because that's number 9. So I'll just do this. Okay. I see nutrition. In many ways, an aspect of the game that is equal. The aspect we are talking about, obviously, is rocket modifications. So let me just do this. The paragraph starts with racket modifications. So obviously, when we say this aspect, we are also referring back to that. It's equal in significance. It means equally important to nutrition, meaning diet, or training. Well, obviously, that's number 10, training. Also, every time you find an answer, just leave a note for yourself. I mean, probably with a different color because the orange ones are my guesses, but now I'm sure about this. So if you're in the test, you can actually have a symbol that you put like a star or something every time you find an answer. And that will actually help you not waste any time to go back and try to find the locations. So this is training that they do. All rackets used to have natural strings made from the something of animals. Similar to weather, similar to diets, animals are not the topic that we are talking about. So if I see an animal, the word animal or a type of animal in the text, that's going to be the answer to this. So 11, it should be after training and it should be an animal. Okay, let's see. I'm sorry, after 10 and it should be an animal. Well, I don't see any animals in this paragraph. So in here I have sheep and I have cow. At one time, it means in the past, they used to. All tennis rackets used to have or used to be made from natural gut, made from the outer layer of sheep or cow intestines. Now, before the book was officially published and I could check the answer sheets for this test, My guess was between natural gut, I mean, gut as one word, or intestines, because I was like, okay, should we go with the more general one or should we go with the more specific answer? Because they are basically the same thing, the gut and the intestines. I mean, not the same thing, but they can both be the answer. And then I take the answer sheet, and either one is okay. You can write intestines or gut, you'll get the answer. So the answer to this one, made from the animal's gut or intestines. Also, the guesses that my students had for this one were also close, like the animal fur, the animal's hair, the animal's horns, the animal's so on. You get the idea. But it's strings, so it's probably not from horns or the harder parts of their bodies. It's probably from hair, fur, or gut and intestines. So let's see. Pete Sampras and another name. So we have two names. And again, if I wanted to find this one, I would do it very easily. It's the last question, meaning I will go from the end instead of looking in like middle paragraphs. And it should be very easy to find a name like that. So let's go to the last paragraph. No names here. I see Conchado. And then we had Pete Sampras. We have the location of everything. Now it's just a matter of time. Uh, Literally. Gonçalo Oliveira changed the something on his racket handles. Okay, a specific part of the racket, the handles. This guy changed something on it. Okay, what did he change? Gonçalo Oliveira replaced the original grips of his rackets with something thinner. Okay, grip is actually as a noun, it's the part of something that you hold, and grip as a verb just means holding something in your hands. So he changed the original grips on his rackets. Pete Sampras had metal something put into the frames. Okay, what did he put into the frames? Many players go beyond these basic adjustments to the strings and make changes to the racket frame itself. And an example of that is Pete Sampras. So the answer has to be here. For example, much of the serving power of US professional player Pete Sampras was attributed to the addition, so he added something to the racket, of 4 to 5. Now, students, usually in the class, when I ask the students to read this, they actually read it as lead, like the verb lead and the noun leader. But this is actually the type of metal that we are talking about. This is lead. So metal weights onto his rackets. So weight as a noun in here, basically like dumbbells or barbells or whatever, things you have in the gym. Those are weights. So this guy added metal weights to his racket. And that's going to be the answer. Let's see. Pete Sampras had metal. Instead of lead, we have metal weights put into the frames. All rackets used to have, okay, they were made, used to be made from gut and intestines. Training, we have already written that. Players could not use the spaghetti strong racket because it created a lot of something. This is before training and after Mike and Bob Bryan. So it's not on the first page because we had Mike and Bob Bryan here. No mention of spaghetti here. And this is going to be the answer. So uh, amateur German tennis player Werner Fischer started playing with the so-called. It means obviously this is not an official name for it, but people called it spaghetti strong racket. It created a string bed that created so much topspin that it was quickly banned by the International Tennis Federation. So ask yourself, why was it banned by the federation? Well, because it created a lot of something. Now, it doesn't matter if we know what topspin is. I mean, I didn't know, but I mean, I could guess. This is the ball spinning and probably the force that it has. I mean, the rotational force that it has is probably topspin. Again, doesn't matter. We are not tennis players. I mean, you could be, but I'm not. So it doesn't really matter if you know exactly what this is. But we know that this was created. And because this was created and so much of it was created, the Tennis Federation banned those rackets. So just write it as the answer. Doesn't matter if you know what it means or not. And also, I mean, obviously, it's top and spin. So Mike and Bob Bryan made changes to the types of something used on their racket frames. And when you have the whole passage about rackets, it becomes important which parts of the racket we are talking about. So this guy was making changes to the handles, this guy was making changes to the frames, and so on. And this one was about the strings. Mike and Bob Bryan used something on the frames. What did they use? Mike and Bob Bryan, for example, we are very particular with our racket specifications. All our rackets are sent from our manufacturer to Tampa, Florida, where our frames go through a thorough customization process. They explain how they have adjusted not only the racket length, but they have also experimented with different kinds of paint. So they have changed the length of the rackets and the different kinds of paint. So let's see which one we can use as the answer. They have made changes to the types of. Now, if it was length, we wouldn't say types of. So we can say they have made changes to the length of the racket frames. And also, of course, length is not used on the rackets. So you can say they have made changes to the length of their frames or rackets, or they have made changes to the types of paint used on the racket frames. So those are the only two things they had changed. Now let's see what we have here. It was believed that Pete Sampras made his. It was believed that the changes Pete Sampras made to his racket contributed to his strong serve. So this guy had a strong serve, the first hit, and people believed it was because of the changes that he made. Okay, let's go and find Pete Sampras. It should be. Didn't I underline it? Okay, Pete Sampras. Uh, Much of the serving power of US professional player Pete Sampras was attributed. So, yes, most of his power was, people thought most of his power comes from something attributed to the addition of the metal weights to his rackets. And today, many professional players have the weight adjusted during the manufacturing process. Okay, so it was believed that the changes he made, meaning the metal weights that he added, contributed to his strong serve. That is true. The weather can affect how professional players adjust the strings on the rackets. So people change their rackets or the tiny things on the rackets based on the weather. Okay, let's find anything about weather, and then that's going to be the answer we are looking for. Polyester, average spin, not here. And because again, keep in mind the paragraphs have a logical, each paragraph has a purpose. And if in here they are talking about the materials they use, it's very unlikely for them to also talk about weather. It's like they are talking about polyester again, how they actually went from natural materials to synthetic materials and so on. But as I was explaining that, I saw climatic and climatic conditions, meaning weather. So this is what we're looking for. The former, modifications can be divided into two categories: those to the string bed and those to the racket frame. The former, also this is something they always use in these type of passages. The former and the latter. It means the first thing we mentioned and the second thing we mentioned. Again, you can find a similar example to this in book 15, Cambridge IELTS 15, test 1, reading passage 1 about nutmeg. Two of the answers are in the same sentence, and it shares a similar structure to this one. The former is this, the latter is that. The former is far more common. So this is more common, and this one is less common. The choice of the strings and the tension with which they are installed is something that nearly all professional players experiment with. They will continually change it depending on various factors, including the court surface. So they will keep changing it based on the court surface, the climatic conditions, and the game styles. Some will even change it depending on how they feel at the time. So yes, they make changes. Very nice. That's also true. Werner Fischer played with a spaghetti strong racket that he designed himself. Now, there are two things you should pay attention when it comes to this one. You should pay attention to when it comes to this one. Werner Fischer played with a spaghetti strong racket. Okay, that's one thing. Also, keep in mind, if you want to say this is true, this part has to be true and this part has to be true. If this is true and this part is false, you cannot actually say that statement is true. So that will actually make it false. Or it's probably not given. We don't know. Let's see. Werner Fischer played with a spaghetti strong racket that he designed himself. So this part, to me, this is actually the more important part, because maybe he did play with one, but did he design it himself? We don't know. Let's see. What was the name? Werner Fischer. And it's the spaghetti one, so it's here. Werner is here. Modifications mainly date back to the 70s when the amateur German tennis player Werner Fischer started playing with the spaghetti strong racket. Now, again, we don't know if he designed it himself, but we know he was playing with it. So half of the sentence is true. It created, we have already read this sentence. However, within a decade or two, modifications became a regularity. Today, it is in many ways an aspect of the game that is equal in significance to nutrition or training. Well, now this is actually a common issue for many of the students. So we know that he played with the racket. We don't know if he designed it himself. So is this false or is this not given? I'm going to take a sip of my coffee and check the time because I'll have a class in like 30 minutes. So you have time to think whether this is false or not given. It's a not given because just because we didn't say he created it himself doesn't mean that he didn't create it himself. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. We have no idea. Because of that, we cannot say it is false. We could say it's false if in here it said he started playing with the so-called spaghetti strong racket, which was designed by a team of, for example, scientists, or which was given to him by someone who had created it from, like, for example, a piece of wood, whatever. But we don't know who created it, and we cannot prove it either way. We cannot say he did create it. We cannot say he didn't create it. So that's why this one is a not given. Mike and Bob Bryan use rackets that are light in comparison to the majority of rackets. So Mike and Bob Bryan's rackets are lighter than everyone else. Now, I remember we talked about these two guys here, and they have adjusted the length and the paint, and the rackets they use now weigh more than the average model and also have a denser string pattern. Okay, so it weighs more. In here it says they are lighter. No, they are heavier, which means this is false. Most of the world's top players take a professional racket stringer on tour with them. Most of them. It's good. I mean, if it said all of them or none of them, it would be easier to prove or disprove it. But still, it says most, and of the world top players take a professional stringer with them. What is a stringer or what does he do? We don't know and we don't really care. So let's see. We have Murray here twice. So I assume that part is not about the professional people going on tour, but I'll just give it a go. I don't see any mention of tour or tournaments or uh, basically just players being in a championship. So I'm going to skip that. Touring professionals. Okay, now this is more like it. So, and we have Mike and Bob Bryan here. So whatever the answer is, it has to be here in this box. The modification that Murray made is just one of a number of options available to players looking to tweak their rackets, change or make adjustments in order to improve their games. Touring professionals have their rackets customized to their specific needs, says Colin Triplow, a UK-based professional racket stringer. So this guy is a stringer, and he says most professionals or touring professionals have their rackets customized. Okay, it's a highly important part of the performance maximization. Okay, maximize would be the verb, maximization, noun. The specific rackets used by the word elites are not actually readily available to the public. Rather, each racket is individually made to suit the player who uses it. Take Mike and Bob Bryan. Okay, now the topic has moved on. Well, we know that they actually have stringers who help them customize the rackets, but do they take them on tours? We don't know. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Again, we cannot say this is false just because we didn't find it in the passage. Uh, if it was false, it would say, well, most players can take a stringer with them, but it's too expensive. Or they can do it, but they prefer to be alone. So that's why they don't really want anyone else to be on tour with them. But we didn't say anything like that. So we cannot say this is false. The change that Andy Murray made attracted a lot of attention. Okay, let's see. The changes this guy made. Also, someone would probably say, well, teacher, why are you going from the last question to the first one? That doesn't make any sense. It's not logical to do that because now you're instead of understanding the topic, you are going backwards. You're reverse engineering the topic, which is not the best idea for this. But the thing is, with this type of questions, if your English is above average, you can do the same thing without any problems, without even reading the passage. Now, it's a risky approach and it requires a lot of practice. And because if you get stuck with one or two of the questions and you cannot find it, now you have wasted a lot of time and you cannot really, after 10 minutes, just start reading the passage from the beginning. So it's a risky approach, but with some practice, you can actually master it. So, and that means you don't even need to read the passage. I don't even care about most of the information. I just need 13 simple answers. Now, let's see. The change that this guy made attracted a lot of attention. That I'm assuming this is the first and this is the second question. Of the changes that account for this transformation, one was visible, can be seen. Any word with this is about seeing. Also, if you want to learn more about vocabulary like this and how they are made, basically the prefixes, roots, and suffixes, you can go to our website, my website. I don't know why I said our. TOEFL.page or IELTS9.com, IELTSIEX.com. So, uh, okay, it was visible and widely publicized. Uh, Public, meaning it's available to everyone. It can be seen by everyone. Publicize, it means make something popular or make something, put something in front of a large group of people, like advertising something. That would be publicizing it, promoting it. One was visible and widely publicized. I assume when we say this, there should be another one that wasn't very visible and widely publicized. And that is, of course, true. So it says of the changes, meaning there is more than one. One of them is here, and this one is visible and widely publicized. Why would the writer say that if he wasn't going to tell you another one that is the opposite of this? For example, uh, I have two students. One is very, very angry and he is always aggressive. Obviously, when I do that, the other one should be the opposite way. Also, that's not real. That's not a true example. Most of my students are nice people. All of them, actually, all of them are nice people. So one was visible and widely publicized. That means the other one was not very visible and was not widely publicized. Another change was so subtle. Subtle is something that doesn't get any attention. It's like low key. If you're a young person, you probably use the word low key instead of that. So, and it went unnoticed. Unnoticed. It means people didn't notice that. Also, the ICE makes it a noun. Uh, and note would be the root. So, notice something, it means realize something is happening or something gets your attention, basically. That's when you notice it. And unnoticed, it means it didn't get any attention. So, we want to know if one of those changes attracted a lot of attention. But which one? The change that he made to his racket. So let's see. These two things. The first change, the one that got a lot of attention. He invited a former number one player into his coaching team. And the other change that was subtle and unnoticed, he actually changed the type of strings that he was using. Okay, so the change to the racket was unnoticed and was very subtle. But inviting the number one player attracted a lot of attention. So in here, the change that he made to his racket attracted a lot of attention is false. How do we know it's false? Because we said the changes that he made were very subtle and most people didn't notice them. Most people didn't realize that those changes had been made. People had expected Andy Murray to become the world's top tennis player for at least 5 years before 2016. Okay, meaning 2011 to 2016. Let's see, in 2016, also the 2011 thing is here. But in here, we are talking about the changes. The British professional tennis player Andy Murray was ranked as the world's number one. Okay, but what about the 5 years prior to that? It was an incredible achievement by any standard, made even more remarkable by the fact that he did this during a period considered to be one of the strongest in the sport's history, competing against the likes of Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, and Novak Djokovic, to name just a few. Yet 5 years previously, he had been regarded as a talented outsider who entered but never won the major tournaments. So This is basically the answer. 5 years previously, he had been regarded as a talented outsider. So he was talented. Everyone agreed that he is talented. And we know as a fact that he entered tournaments, but never won any of the tournaments. Okay, so those are the only two things we know. People considered him to be talented. He entered tournaments, but never won. People had expected Andy Murray to become the world's top tennis player, meaning number one, for at least 5 years. Well, again, can we say people didn't expect him to win? No, because people considered him a good player. So maybe they expected him to win. Can we say people did expect him to win? Well, no, because we didn't specifically say that. We didn't say, oh, people really considered him to be the best and they thought he is definitely going to win. No, we didn't say that. We just said they thought he is talented. Being talented and being number one are not the same thing. So for this one, not given, and that's going to be it. I mean, it definitely took much, much, much longer than it should have, but that was because I was actually explaining things. But if you really want to do this, you can easily manage to do it within 5 to 10 minutes. When five would be pushing it, but easily manageable in 10 minutes. And that will give you 10 extra minutes that you can spend on passage two and passage three. So that's going to be it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Or if you are buying this on the website, you can actually send me an email. I'll be more than happy to answer. And if it's on social media, well, just follow us, leave a comment. And all the links to our social media channels, like the YouTube, the Facebook, and Instagram, and so on, you can find them on the website. That's it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you guys later in the next one.